Thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this great event. And I will continue some questions which Boris already started to discuss with the audience, maybe with some another aspects which are, according to my opinion, not less important, maybe even more important. First of all, I agree that events of 1917 and after November, October 1917 were really great. It was a change in all world history. It is not because I am still understanding myself as a citizen of the Soviet Union, as a person who was born in the Soviet Union, who in many aspects, is continuing traditions of the revolutionary forces of my country. But first of all, because then in 20th century, we had system of revolutions nearly everywhere, which led to the different results. Sometimes victories, sometimes defeats, sometimes very strange mutations, and in many aspects, really negative mutations. We received very important reforms in all the world, and it was in many aspects a result of these revolutionary changes and revolutions in different countries. I just want to remind, after revolution in the Russian Empire, late 1917, we had a revolution in Germany. I said we, not because I am German, I am not, but because it was part of our common struggle, a struggle of our parents, grandparents, grandparents, and so on. So, revolution in Germany, revolution in Hungary, events in other West European countries, in not in other East European countries, and also in the West European countries, where left forces were on the border of the victory, and only fascist changes, fascist dictatorships in European countries really prevented left trend in the world. In many aspects, revolutions in Mexico was interconnected with revolutions in Europe and in Asia. Of course, Chinese revolution, Cuba, a lot of revolutionary changes in Latin America, in Africa, Vietnam, and so on and so forth. So it was a whole epoch of revolutions. And I want to stress this because in many texts, people or intellectuals, maybe intellectuals, are trying to forget about revolution as important or maybe the most important part of the human development progress. So this is first. Second, I do not want to discuss question of the nature of the Soviet Union. In our country, we have these debates more than 100 years with more or less the same arguments and with some corrections and some new ideas, but typically it's more or less the same debates as it was 100 years ago in 1920s. I want to stress that all authors, except maybe right-wing neoliberals, stress and will stress important achievements of the Soviet Union, which became uh, extremely big challenge for the whole mankind. I want to stress challenge because we made something impossible from the capitalist logic, from the point of view of capitalist logic. Maybe the first aspect of these results which became challenge. It's a heroic, enthusiastic life, not act, but life of the millions, and I can say many millions of people. Of course, we have Ernesto Che, we have partisans and the heroes of the class struggle in all countries. And then it was millions in many other countries like China and Vietnam and so on. But first explosive of the enthusiasm of the masses who participated in heroic labor. I don't want to overestimate heroic labor, who participated in heroic war when it was necessary to say, I am ready, not to say, but to act. I am ready to be killed, but I will do this because this is important for the mankind. This is very unusual. In one meeting of modern Western intellectuals, very left, it was more than 100 people. I put the question, can you say that you are ready to be killed for something? Any dream will be fulfilled if you are ready to be killed. Everybody said, this is a stupid question, Alexander. Shut up. Maybe in a little bit more polite form, but the essence was exactly this. And our country gave this experience of revolution, labor, work, maybe better to say, and the military struggle. I'm not afraid of this, for communist values and goals. And from the academic point of view, I can say that it was mass social creativity. Mass social creativity of the people who were moving in the direction of communism. This mass social creativity is not reflected in adequate form in academic papers, books, and so on. But in Soviet culture, we have a wonderful reflection of this life, of these acts, of this heroic behavior. Sometimes in very simple forms. Sometimes it was necessary only to be the teacher in small village with big risk to be killed. Teacher with big risk to be killed. And it was associated communist social creativity to go to the village and to teach children. And it was not one, it was not 1,000. It was a cultural revolution, the same in many other aspects. Of course, we had in Soviet Union a lot of political repressions, authoritarian and sometimes totalitarian behavior of the ruling forces. We had the Gulag and so on and so far, power of bureaucracy. But now I'm talking about legacy of the revolution for everybody. And the legacy, the first lesson, if you want, is lesson of mass social creativity. And if we are thinking about socialism of the 21st century, I think we must, not we can, but we must understand that this social creativity will be the most important factor of the creation of new society, of the socialism. Not state, not even party, but this very important factor. Second aspect, which is not typically stressed. This is a question of culture. One time you have to invite my wife, Lyudmila Bulavka. She wrote different books and hundreds of articles devoted to the Soviet culture and interconnection with Soviet culture with social creativity of the masses. During Civil War, 1917, 1920s, 1921, in our country, in the situation of bloody, terrible war, hunger, poverty, was created thousands of different forms of clubs for workers, libraries, cinema theaters, research centers. Budget of Narkomat, like Ministry of Culture, was bigger than the budget of many other ministries. And it was for ordinary people who started to live in the culture, to participate in this creativity, maybe in primitive forms, but the result was not very beautiful poem of the worker. The result was a worker who is thinking about poems. And without this worker who is thinking not about vodka mainly, of course he is drinking, and he will be drinking for some other years, yeah, it's not kick. but who started to think about poetry, about theater. And it was continuing and continuing. And even in terrible periods like Stalin's dictatorship, 1930s, in the period of Brezhnev stagnation, 1970s, of course, in the Khrushchev spring, 1960s, we had the special Komsomol and Communist Party were created special rules for the workers, peasants, ordinary people who did not have good education to go to school or to go to university. They had privileges, 2 hours less time to work, some special benefits in the working place, special support, respect, and even political violence, I can say. People were forced to be schoolboys and schoolgirls. It's also a very strange bureaucratic mutation of a very important idea. So I want to stress, including of the people in real culture, not in pop show business. Not pop, doesn't matter, pop or rock or classic, but not in the show business. This artificial simulation of culture, but including into the real culture. This is second very important point. And only on the third place, I can and will talk about economy. And here, very important lesson. This year, 2021, we celebrate 100th anniversary of new economic policy. This policy started in 1921. It was first time in the world scale when, in the scale of the big country, one of the biggest country of the world, we had combination of market and plan. By the way, we have also 100th anniversary of Gosplan, of national planning. It was first experience and theory and practice of national planning, which started in 20s in Soviet Union. So plan and market together. Not simply private and state property. Of course, state property existed before, but social property, state property which is working for ordinary people. Because state property can work for big business. State property can work for bureaucracy. In Soviet Union, of course, was bureaucracy and so on, but mainly, especially in 1920s, state property was working for ordinary people. And even after that, even in period of so-called developed socialism in 1970s, when people say we did not have in Soviet Union social property because the state was bureaucratized and everything was in the hands of bureaucracy. It's true. But from another point of view, everybody had some results of state property. And this is well-known results: free of charge apartments, guarantees of job, security, free of charge education, free of charge healthcare, free of charge access to the art, sport, and many other aspects of life, rest. So it was a result of state property also. And this combination of private property and the control of society from one hand, and social property in the form of state property working for the people, this is also extremely important part of the new economic policy. With very big contradictions, with bureaucratization and so on. And when now we are trying to understand the legacy of Soviet revolution and creation of socialism for the world, first question will be not nationalized or privatized industry. The question will be for benefits of whom? Because sometimes nationalization is more profitable for bourgeoisie, for bureaucracy, than for ordinary people. In Russia, we have huge state corporations, but I'm not sure that they are working for ordinary people. They're working for top managers, for bureaucracy, and for private business around them. So this is economy plus problem of social justice. I want to stress one point which is known but not well known. This is a party maximum. During new economic policy in our country, we had big wages for people who were specialists, so-called bourgeois specialists. But sometimes it was not bourgeois specialists. It were communists who were well educated, who were good specialists, who were working hard. And they could have salary, wage, maybe 10, 20 times more than workers. But in the same time, it was party maximum. If you are a member of the Communist Party, ruling party, you will have a maximum of your income, and it will be, I don't remember, 4 times more than income of the worker. But that's it. Then when we had Stalin's transformation of our country, I use mild word, transformation, terrible transformation. This party maximum disappeared, and the nomenclatura bureaucracy received some privileges. Still not such big as bourgeoisie has or as any bourgeois government has. If you compare, I don't know, privileges of Soviet Communist Party top officials with privileges of United States or I don't know, any other bureaucrats in Soviet Union were much less, but still it was. And the lesson is, if we want to move in the direction of socialism, ruling force of this movement must be communist. Communist Party must be communist. This is not funny, unfortunately, because one of another lessons, negative lessons, which I will jump to the 1991, to the year of collapse of the Soviet Union. By the way, we have also 30th anniversary, if it is anniversary, 30th anniversary of collapse of the Soviet Union this year also. And I was member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union during last year of existence of this party. I was elected as representative of democratic Marxist communist opposition. And then we discussed with my friends, if we had at least one communist in the Central Committee of the Communist Party, real communist who is ready to be killed, who is ready to make something really important and heroic, who is ready to say no to the privileges. Communist in the Communist Party, in the leading organ of the Communist Party. And unfortunately, we had to say that we didn't have, or maybe a few. 1, 2, 5 from 300 in the Central Committee. Among ordinary members, yes, we had. And some people were real heroes when we had struggle against the bourgeois regime. And in 1993, Boris also participated in these events. Hundreds, but I think thousands of people were killed, wounded. They were in prison. They were again communists, even those who were not communists according to official status. So this is also important lesson. In economy, to develop real socialist essential features, not formal features, like state or something like that. One more very important aspect of social, economic, and even political development of our country during new economic policy, and lesson for today. This is question of dynamic, question of the goal. I don't know about the audience of this conference, of this Congress, but in our country, when I was a young student and even schoolboy, everybody remembered the sentence, slogan of Lenin, slogan of Bolsheviks from I will say in Russian and then translate. In Russian it's more beautiful. Из России Неповской будет Россия социалистическая. From Russia, which is determined by new economic policy with capital, with market and so on, will be socialist Russia. So all forms, market, private capitalist property, inequality, money as motivation and as the goal, they were means for development in the socialist direction. I said many times in China, where there is very popular phrase, sentence, it doesn't matter what is the color of the cat. The case is if it can eat mouse. But all time I said, market and private property is not cat, it is tiger, extremely dangerous tiger, who can eat you, not mouse. So, and in Soviet Union, it was understood. And it was their strategy to move in the direction of communism. I will say not simply socialism, communism. But in the first stage of this movement, in the very, very beginning, we have to use, of course, market, private property, and other forms. And only then we can and have to move in the direction of new society. But we must remember, market, private property, capital, they are enemies. We can coexist with these enemies. We can use them. It's maybe not even, I will make another parallel. Market like poison of the snake, yeah, snake in English. If it is small portion of poison, it can be even medicine. But if it is a little bit bigger, you will die. So that's why you have to control all time of this, all these relations, and to create not artificial, not voluntaristic, not administrative, but create real basis for decline and decline and decline step by step of the influence of competition, alienation, capitalist inequality, and so on and so forth. So I think this is very important legacies of our revolution and first years after revolution. I will not now discuss question of contradictions of Stalin's epoch, of some rebirth of our culture and even elements of democracy in 1960s. But I want to stress only one aspect. All these periods, all life of Soviet Union, which was born because of the revolution of 1917, all experience of Soviet Union showed very interesting law, I can say, or maybe feature as minimum feature, maximum law. What kind? We had very big results in the spheres which are absolutely adequate for communism. Where? First, maybe even the first, social creativity. And when social creativity was defeated by bureaucracy, Soviet Union collapsed. Not next year, but after some decades, it was collapsed. Second, we had wonderful, fantastic success in culture. And there is very simple sentence, 3 words of Karl Liebknecht, great German thinker and socialist communist leader. Karl Liebknecht said, communism equal culture. Communism equal culture. Why? Because in culture, we have non-alienated relations. We have very deep contradictions. We can have big debates with Boris KARGARLITSKY, who is more smart, Boris or me or Boris. And it will be debate. We can have debate about nature of Soviet Union, but this is not social alienation. And in culture, social alienation doesn't exist. Every sentence of Leo Tolstoy or Shakespeare or any picture of Picasso, of, I don't know, Raphael, belongs to everybody. In culture, we have property of everybody on everything. I want to stress, not property of state on something, not even property of society on something. It is not property of society on my phone, yeah? It is something another. It is property of everybody on everything. We have property on all textbooks in physics, in mathematics. We can learn Chinese language. We can learn Swahili. We can learn whatever we want. Everything is for us. Even in bourgeois Russia, we have Lenin's library, where there are millions of books which you can read for free. You're welcome. You can eat if you can, of course. We have social alienation around this, but what is important? Development of culture is development of elements of communism. It is not political communism. It is not communism in political sphere. It is not communism in economic sphere. It is not communism in ideology, but this is very important element of communism. And I want to stress this. And development of culture with all contradictions, with all bureaucratic limits and so on, was one of the main results. Then we had fantastic results in education. And I think this is still the challenge. And one of the tasks of the left, which is not very recognized, is struggle against modern model of education. Not only privatization, not only commercialization. This is extremely important. But not only this, the content of education. Idea of education in all bourgeois state to produce professional. The key idea of Soviet education with all negative deformations was to produce personality. Not even produce, to develop personality. So, and then we had the very big results in science. So, what is necessary for communist life? To have creative labor in education, in science, and in art. We had some elements of this in Soviet Union. What is important for communism? To have property of everybody on everything. We had some elements of this in the Soviet Union. What is important for communism? To have mass social creativity, enthusiasm. Sometimes heroic, sometimes everyday enthusiasm. But enthusiasm in solidarity, in collective. We had some elements of this. And the more we had elements of communism in Soviet Union, the better we had the results in our country. The less we had elements of communism in our country, we are moving in more and more terrible contradictions. What we had in last decade maybe of Soviet Union, 1970s, early 1980s, we had conformism. We had unity of conformism plus bureaucracy. And this union of conformists plus bureaucracy destroyed Soviet Union. Really, Soviet Union was destroyed in 1970s because we lost communist content of our life. Before we had only elements of communist content, only elements, but we had elements. Then we were losing step by step these elements. And finally, we came to the absence of elements of communism. And if we have a petty bourgeois society of conformists who wants to have supermarket with a lot of goods, of course, socialism will be destroyed. So this is, I think, the most important aspects of our past. And if I have some minutes to say about modern Russia, you said 30, 40 minutes, so I'm talking 30. maybe a little bit more. I don't know what will say. It's our moderator, but he doesn't stop me, so I decided this is permission.
You can have more time to talk.
Yeah. So I will add something about modern situation in Russia. It is extremely contradictory situation. Even for understanding, it's very difficult to understand how can such incompatible things be together. So in general, modern Russian society is bureaucratic oligarchic capitalism of semi-periphery country with big elements of feudalism. Very strange. We have late capitalism, we have corporations, we have high tech in some spheres, we have nuclear power stations, and at the same time we have elements of feudalism and so on. So who has, by the way, I want to stress one very important question, which I ask to everybody everywhere. Who has main economic and political power in your country? When we are talking among ourselves, left intellectuals, the answer will be simple. But when we are talking with ordinary people, when you put this question, at least in Russia, 90% said, who? Of course, big business and bureaucrats. Who else? But when I say, look, guys, girls, you just said that we have terrible system. You don't have economic and political power. You are nobody. Economic and political power belongs to big business and top bureaucrats. This is very important, very communist, very socialist, very Marxist conclusion. Remember this. You are not masters of your life. You are not masters of your country. By the way, when I put this question during my lectures in the United States for US students, it was first silence and then a lot of contradictory reaction. I will say in polite form. But I have open air in Russian Federal Radio. And this 90% is not my dream or my, I don't know, joke. This was a result of telephone opinion poll. It was more than 1,000 calls, and 900 said in Russia, power belongs to top bureaucrats and oligarchs, big business. But we also have a lot of forms of semi-feudal relations in our country. This is in general situation. And this is part of the reality, maybe dominant part of the reality, but there is another part of reality. This is existing tradition or inertia maybe of Soviet Union, and I can say even inertia of October Revolution. We still have among ordinary people, especially in central Russia, not in Moscow, not in St. Petersburg, in ordinary Russian towns, cities, villages, we have a lot of values which are interconnected with this legacy of revolution. What kind? First, absolute majority, according to opinion polls, are sure that education must be free of charge, social, just, based on equality, and so on. The same about healthcare. Majority, not everybody, but majority are absolutely sure that in our country we must have progressive income tax. By the way, in Russia we don't have progressive income tax. Everybody pays 13%. If you have billion of dollars, you pay 13%. If you have $100 per month, you pay 13%. This is one of a few countries who has this terrible system. But 83% said its opinion poll that we must have more equality in the country, and it's justice when millionaire or billionaire will pay 50% of his income, and we will use this money for development of the country, of the people. So we still have memory about peace. This is one of the key slogans, because in our country, we have militarization, as by the way, everywhere now. But memory about peace, memory about Second World War, about victims of this war is very important for us. And here I will make small break for 1 minute only. Today is 22nd of June. And 80 years ago, exactly in this day, German troops attacked Soviet Union, bombarded cities and so on. In our country, 27 million of people were killed, and mainly citizens, not soldiers. 27 millions. Victims of United States were 100 times less, or maybe 50 times less, just to compare. What is also important, what I want to stress in this day, and this is one of the legacies of the Soviet Union. In our country, people were ready for heroic struggle against fascism. Not everybody, but millions. Millions. And this is important. Why? Let's look on the Europe. When Nazi came to Austria, what said Austrians? We 70%, as in Belarus, 70% will go to partisans in Alps. No. They said, we will produce armaments for Hitler. When Nazi came to Czechoslovakia, country which produced armaments in the same volume as Germany, what say Czechs and Slovaks? We all go to partisans, some burned, and this is very heroic people. But all others were producing armaments, steel, guns, tanks for Nazi, to kill our people, to kill Jews, to kill Gypsy, to kill everybody. What said Belgian democratic people? What said Denmark democratic people? They created divisions of soldiers who went to the East Front to kill our people. Even France did the same. After a few months of the struggle, then it was France divisions who, together with Hitler troops, were killing people everywhere. Of course, we had some thousands, maybe 20, 25,000 of Maquis in France. We had some people in Belgium. We had some people in Denmark. And by the way, big part of them were communists. This is a very important lesson. Really, it was necessary to be communist, actor of social creativity and heroic person during Second World War. Because in all countries occupied by Nazis, it was only one choice. Either you are a supporter of Hitler and killer, directly or indirectly. You are producing food for Hitler soldiers. You are producing steel for Hitler soldiers. You are producing service for Hitler soldiers. You are producing guns, tanks, and you are going to troops which are killing people together with Nazis. One choice. Second choice, you go to Maquis. You go to partisans. You are fighting against Hitler, and you can be killed with very big probability. If you don't do anything, you will die because you must have money. And if you simply open bar for Hitler troops, you are a supporter of Hitler. Of course, no court. You will not be punished after the end of the war. But from the historical point of view, you became supporter of Hitler. This is the challenge of the war. And I think Soviet Union showed, with all contradictions, with all repressions, with all bureaucracy and so on, showed how this challenge can be done by masses. This is important. So now coming back to modern situation. And today in Russia, we have this legacy very alive. And this is also not so simple, again, contradiction, because we have exploitation of this legacy by modern state, Russian state. So we have extremely contradictory combination of all these aspects. Finally, as conclusion, we have situation when majority of people who are living in very bad conditions are supporters of, let's say, early socialist model like new economic policy, or very left social democratic model, as in Scandinavian countries or in Bolivia or in Venezuela, something like that. But in the same time, these people are very afraid of any changes and not politically organized. And this is a very deep contradiction of our country. I don't have time to give more details of political and so on landscape, but Boris said a lot about that. I wanted to stress some fundamental aspects of legacy of socialist revolution. And maybe I was talking too much about communism, but I still can say and must say that I'm communist, not simply left intellectual. I'm not heroic struggle fighter in the barricades. I'm professor, but in past we had something not very heroic, but we had many of our friends, including Boris and so on. So I'm finishing. Thank you for opportunity to present this paper.